In Matthew 28, verses 19 and 20, it says, Yeshua said to teach them to observe all things that I have commanded you. And lo, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. The Greek word for observe means to watch or to keep. Did he command us to keep Christmas or Easter? I don't think so. If we follow in his footsteps, we will keep what he kept, and Yahshua Messiah kept the biblical holy days. Some people think we just need to have love. You know, you hear that a lot. Say, hey, you know, you're a legalist. You're all into the law. You just need to have love. Well, it's true, because if we don't have love, Yahweh's kind of love, we won't be part of his kingdom. It says we are as nothing if we don't have love. So we definitely have to have that kind of love. But what is love? Is love just an emotion, or it's outgoing concern for others, and it's putting your life down for someone else? Well, it says that in 1 John chapter 5, verses 2 and 3, by this we know that we love the children of Yahweh, when we love Yahweh and keep his commandments. For this is the love of Yahweh, that we keep his commandments, and his commandments are not burdensome. So those verses are pretty clear. Some think that Paul did away with the holy days, but Paul himself said, imitate me just as I also imitate Messiah. That's in 1 Corinthians 11, verse 1. And then in verses 23 through 29, we are also told to keep the Passover. You can read those verses yourself, verses 23 through 29 of 1 Corinthians 11. Then it says in Acts 2 and verse 1, when the day of Pentecost had fully come, they were all with one accord in one place. So we see they were keeping Pentecost in the New Testament. In the Old Testament, that same feast is called Shavuot. That's Acts 2 and verse 1. In Acts 12, verses 2 and 3, it mentions the days of unleavened bread. You can read those for yourself. Acts 12, verses 2 and 3. And it also mentions them in Acts 20, verse 6. Paul said in Acts 18, verses 21, I must by all means keep this coming feast in Jerusalem. We can speculate which feast it was. We don't know exactly if it was Passover or the Feast of Tabernacles. Some think it was the Feast of Tabernacles by other contextual clues. In Colossians, chapter 2, verses 16 and 17, this is one of the places where the Bible is misquoted. So before I read those verses, just think about it now. The apostles are going around to different people, to other Jews and also to many Gentiles, teaching the truth, teaching the incredible, great news, the good news, that now they won't die, that they can live forever in Yahweh's kingdom if they accept Yahshua the Messiah as their Savior. And they change their life around. And they start keeping his word and his law. It's great news. And they gave great examples of how to keep it. By having the law written on their heart. And Yeshua said that he did not come to destroy the law at all, but to fill it up, to make it even more. To not just, you can't do this or you can't do that, but you have to believe it. No, it has to be in your heart. It wasn't less law, it was even more. But it's part of us now. It becomes part of our mind, the way we think. And along with that was keeping the Sabbath. Of course, it's the fourth commandment. Why would you eliminate the fourth one? Why not the sixth or the seventh? He said, he who changes the smallest, the least of these commandments. Do you consider the Sabbath to be the least commandment? Look at what it says in Matthew 5 about what you do, what happens to you if you do anything to his commandments, if you change them. We cannot touch them. We can't add to them or take away from them at all. And so now these new brethren, they were keeping the law. They were keeping these things. They were now keeping the Sabbath day. They were also making sure that they kept the festivals, the new moons, the Sabbaths. And other people in their family and around them were looking at them like, hey, why are you doing this? Why did you change? You changed your religion. This might have happened to you. If you used to keep Sunday and now you're keeping the Sabbath, your family will start to judge you and say, what are you doing? You're keeping the Sabbath and the holy days? And this is strange. Well, Paul tells us in Colossians 2:16 and 17. So, let no one judge you in food or in drink, because also we eat kosher now. We eat biblically kosher. That's in Leviticus 11. Yahweh made our bodies. He knows what food is good for us and what food is not good for us. Why would that change too? That's something that has always been that way. The structure of the meat of an animal, why would that change? Don't listen to any fairy tales. This is what Yahweh said. That doesn't change. And so it says, let no one judge you in food or in drink, or in regarding a festival, if you're starting to keep the festivals and the feast days now, or a new moon, or Sabbaths, which are a shadow of things to come. They're not, they were, it doesn't say were a shadow, they are a shadow, they still exist, but the substance is of Messiah. So they didn't go away, they are still a shadow because he didn't come yet, and they all point to Yeshua. The holy days are very important in that sense. Now we jump ahead to the future, even beyond our future. It's the kingdom. In Zechariah chapter 14 and verse 1. This is talking about the kingdom now. This hasn't happened yet. Read all of Zechariah 14 and you'll see. It says in verse 1, behold, the day of the Lord is coming. The day of the Lord didn't come yet. And your spoil will be divided in your midst. Verse 2, for I will gather all the nations to battle against Jerusalem. That hasn't happened yet. It's going to happen soon in our future. Behold, I will gather all the nations to battle against Jerusalem. The cities shall be taken, the houses rifled, and the women ravished. Half of the cities shall go into captivity, but the remnant of the people shall not be cut off from the city. Okay, so now we know it's the future. I'm going to jump it down to verse 16 and read 16 through 19. Remember, this is the future. It hasn't happened yet. And it shall come to pass that everyone who is left of all the nations which came against Jerusalem shall go up from year to year to worship the King, the Master of hosts, and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. We're going to be keeping the Feast of Tabernacles in the future. They kept it in the past, way in the past, at the time of Moses and the children of Israel, again at the time of the apostles and Yeshua, and then in the future. Why wouldn't we be keeping the feast now? The feast days have never gone away, and Satan has deceived the world because the feast days point to Yeshua. Christmas and Easter point to pagan things. They get your attention off. Haven't you ever wondered about that? Why you give gifts to each other if it's a day to celebrate Yeshua's birth? Why do they have eggs and rabbits made of chocolate and other things on Easter when it's supposed to be the resurrection of Yeshua? Because it's Easter, Astarte, the goddess of fertility. You've been deceived, you've been lied to. You have to wake up and read the Bible. In verse 17 it says, and it shall be that whichever of the families of the earth do not come up to Jerusalem to worship the King, the Master of hosts, on them there will be no rain. There's going to be a plague if you don't keep the Feast of Tabernacles. Is it important to Yahweh? You better believe it. If the family of Egypt will not come up and enter in, they shall have no rain. They shall receive the plague with which the Master strikes the nations, or Yahweh strikes the nations, who do not come up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. This shall be the punishment of Egypt and the punishment of all the nations that do not come up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. So, learn what the feasts are. Read Leviticus 23. Keep the Sabbath every week on the seventh day, from Friday night sunset to Saturday night sunset. Keep the holy days. There's lots of information on the internet. Look and research and read the Bible about the holy days. They're very important. They point to Yeshua the Messiah, and they point to our salvation.